on, fellow A-Plusers? It is I, your Morphinominal host, Adam Perez, back once again with another Ultraman Trigger review, as we're going to go ahead and get into episode number 20, as we're very close, to certainly say the least, when it comes to the finale of this series. We did have ourselves a special episode last week, checked it out a little bit, didn't feel the need to even talk about it, honestly, so that's why we didn't have an episode for you guys last week. It definitely was very much sort of a special episode, if you will. But we come back this week, diving right into sort of the main storyline here, as we have about maybe, 4 or 5 more episodes certainly left to go for this particular series, and I'm really eager to see exactly how this episode or this series certainly rounds off. Some really interesting topics that we wind up getting in here today. So we're going to talk a little bit about Yuna, aka the new Yazari for this generation. We're also going to be talking about the villain in Barriguiler. I might just call him Bari, just because it seems like a mouthful, and I feel like I'm probably pronouncing it incorrectly. So I'm just going to go ahead and refer to him as Bari, but interesting choice of monster here this week. I actually like the idea of a monster with a little bit of a personality, right? You know, while we certainly have had the Giants of Darkness that definitely have personalities themselves, we really have been seeing Trigger and the Gut Select team facing off against a bunch of sort of mindless creatures for the most part, right? I mean, I feel like there's maybe 1 or 2 here or there that actually have some personality to themselves, but this particular character really stood out to me. I really enjoy the idea that he's not just a mindless beast, the fact that he can hold a conversation with somebody like Hoodrum. He's got himself sort of like a built-in lore, or at least a built-in past that's in fact connected to Yazari. So I love the idea that Hoodrum calls upon this guy to use him in the process of trying to kidnap Yazari, and just the idea of seeing what that past was like, or at least having Bari refer to the idea like, hey, we've tackled ones before, and last time we tackled each other, I got my ass handed to me, sort of thing. So I'm not too sure about this particular plan of yours, but Hoodrum winds up sort of luring him in with the promise of some snacks. Look, listen, as a man myself who loves some snacks, you could probably get me to do anything for some Oreos and some milk or something like that. So I get the idea of him loving his cosmic buns or comic buns, whatever it is that he certainly was in. But just to be able to see the idea that somebody like a Yuna can kind of talk to him, get into his mind, and really allow Bari to sort of have a mind of his own and think for himself, right? And kind of make choices, if you will, towards the end of this episode, that really helped out the Gut Select and the Trigger team sort of thing. I really had fun with that, honestly. And so while he definitely felt unique in his own right, his design certainly felt a little bit more lighthearted in a sense. Cool design, but I mean, the guy was like a monster meets a duck with lightning powers or something like that, meets sumo wrestler. It was a really interesting and unique design from maybe some of the other Giants of Darkness or some of the other mindless beasts that we've had. I am curious, because of the fact that he does have this past with Yazari. I haven't had the opportunity to do any research, but has Bari popped up in any other Ultraman series within the franchise? I'm curious if maybe there was a counterpart to him in maybe Ultraman Trigger at some particular point in time. I'm not quite sure, but I would be really curious to kind of see how that plays out. But really great power set, honestly. Electricity for the most part. Even have the opportunity to kind of suck people into his body, specifically into his belly button. And an odd ability to certainly say, but he uses it perfectly in regards to capturing Akito, using it sort of as like a hostage. You give me Yazari, I'll give you your guy back, and that's exactly how he utilizes it in this particular episode. But upon doing so, he does wind up getting Yuna sort of in his head and in his mind, and having a conversation to realize just the wool that Hoodrum has certainly put over his eyes, and Hoodrum's true intention. So I really love the idea. By the end of this episode, you know, we've got Bari who decides, you know what, I'm not really liking the way that this guy's taking advantage of me. I'm going to go ahead and help Trigger. And I thought it made for a really cool, brief little crossover moment here, seeing, you know, Bari use his strength against Hoodrum. I thought it actually worked out rather well towards the end, and him finally appreciating Yazari for certainly who she certainly is. So I kind of like the idea, right? I mean, she mentions the idea like, hey, you're pretty much a brute, right? But there is sort of an honor about you, and it seems as though Bari definitely lived up to it. So again, I think for me, from first impressions, when the episode starts, I'm thinking to myself, what are we getting ourselves into? Like, is this like another ridiculous episode? Are we taking, you know, the special episode kind of weird, quirky character and thrusting them in here? But it's really the idea of this monster just having a personality of his own, a rather unique one that I actually kind of fell in love with, and I actually was a rather big fan of. So I like the way that he was utilized. While I can certainly understand maybe it turned some people off, I'm not sure how you guys certainly appreciated or didn't appreciate Bari, but I can understand if there certainly was maybe some pushback in regards to the villain this week. But I appreciate the personality that he wind up bringing to this episode. Going into the Yuna storyline here, we get the opportunity to see that Yuna's sleeping for most of this episode, clearly gone unconscious for the past couple of days. We see Akito really keeping the Gut Select team up to date in regards to what's up with her, right? The power that she's sort of now awakened with Yazari, and why it's kind of just put her on her ass for the past couple of days. So I'm assuming since the moment with the Kyrie Lloyd, she's been fast asleep for maybe the past several days, sort of thing, you know. And Akito just really takes it in the sense of it's just mental fatigue, right? Like opening up this sort of untapped potential and power definitely is taking a toll on her. But I am interested in this episode to kind of see how everybody certainly treats her, right? Like, you've got people that truly care about her, like Akito along with Kengo, really treating her with like kid gloves, that mentality of sort of protecting her like she's this innocent victim sort of thing. We got to kind of keep her safe, right? I mean, don't get me wrong. I definitely understand the idea, like, hey, she's super important. You know, the Giants of Darkness are certainly after her, so you want to do everything that you can to try and not allow her to be captured or be used. So there is an element of the greater good of the world. We got to protect you. But I do think there is a sense also of, we truly care about this girl. Maybe we don't necessarily think she's ready to take on this huge responsibility. So there also is sort of included an overprotectiveness of it. But I also really enjoyed the idea that you've got somebody like Ignis, who, again, he's like a captive on Gut Select. Like, homeboy's still rocking his handcuffs, and yet he still manages to find his way around the entire ship, which I find absolutely hilarious. Like, I'm pretty sure if Ignis wants to break free, he probably could, but I think homeboy loves being on this ship with them. So the fact that Ignis just continues to pop up out of nowhere is hilarious to me. But I love his particular perspective, right? The idea that, listen, she's you know, doesn't feel the way that everybody else does, kind of sees Yuna differently, and kind of gives her a chance to do sort of her own thing, you know what I mean? Has a very different perspective in the sense that maybe she doesn't necessarily need to be protected, right? Like, give her that particular opportunity to decide what she certainly wants to do. And I love the fact that he winds up giving her sort of a witch's broom to certainly escape, right? Like, so she's either going to use this to play Quidditch, or she's going to go ahead and use this to save the day. And she decides to go ahead and save the day. And I love that mentality of Yuna, right? Taking the bull by the horns and doing what you certainly need to. And the fact that she tells everybody, it feels very much like it's become more of a partnership than her just sort of being a liability, right? Like, I like the idea that she stands up for herself and explains that it's her, that she's the one choosing this destiny for herself, that she fully comprehends sort of the stakes involved and can certainly make her own decisions. And I love the fact that they've allowed Yuna, who really has struggled, right? There's always been this uncertainty, this unknowing, but now that she does know, this uncertainty of really grasping it, right? Her fear of what is going to come with accessing all this power that we saw with the Kyrie Lord sort of mentality, but she still grasps it, right? And now we see her more as a partner and not just somebody that needs to be treated with kid gloves. No longer a liability. So I love the fact that it's Ignis that can see that in her, and also Yuna that can also express that to the remainder of her team. So I've really enjoyed the growth of Yuna in here, from somebody who clearly had no idea what she was getting herself into, no idea what her connection to the past was, and that growing sort of understanding of truly what's at stake and why she certainly needs to step up and choose this particular destiny for herself. So really love what we wind up getting here in regards to the Yuna stuff. Quick honorable mention though does come to, once again, the action in this episode. episode. I was actually a really big fan of it, not just seeing Hoodrum and Ultraman Trigger face off against one another, but I even really enjoyed the Bari and Trigger fight that we got here. The concept of doing some sumo wrestling as Ultraman Trigger activates his power type. I did not see that coming. I was kind of shocked that that's the route that they certainly went with. But it works. It feels very traditional, if you will, in regards to the Japanese culture. I didn't even realize at first that Bari really kind of had sort of that sumo wrestler aesthetic and costume design about him, sort of thing. But when they actually start fighting and you see the stances that he's taking, you know, even seeing Ultraman grab onto like his trunks or whatever he was wearing and using it to leverage him around, sort of thing, it was pretty cool and a rather unique fight in that sense that I've never really seen one like that presented on screen before. But the love for this episode in regards to the action, guys, major props to just the set designers. I've said this before, that those that have to work on the modeling sets and creating these huge towns, the attention to detail is just beyond me. You know, some people have said in the comment section below, you know, like, this is what Ultraman does, right? Like, just the show in general. It's been around for what, 50 years, 55 years. So there definitely is a lot of experience certainly going into it, and just seeing the scope of these model sets, the way that the camera angle sort of travels from street level, you know, up to more maybe eye level of the monsters, and you just see the vastness of the buildings and stuff. Incredible. Like, I don't know who keeps track of all the destruction that happens. Like, when buildings collapse, it's almost cringy for me, because I'm thinking to myself, somebody's got to rebuild that. Like, who's putting this stuff back together, sort of thing, right? Or who's building the next building to then put back into place, sort of mentality. It feels like they probably go through sets all the time, but just the little attention to details honestly win me over and truly makes this particular world and these battles feel very lived in, right? Like, there's a lot more at stake, if you will, and it's something that I really would love to see, that level of attention to detail in, like, say, Super Sentai, when we get our big Megazord battles, right? Like, there is something that's kind of missing, especially now with Super Sentai turning their Zord battles into full CGI. There is sort of an emptiness about the world around them, you know, because it just feels like, oh, let's put a building here and let's just digitize a tree and maybe a car here, and it just feels empty. But when you look at the world of Ultraman Trigger, or just Ultraman in general, the little things, guys, right? Like the crane backing up. When you look inside the little cockpit and you literally have like a man that's kind of like trying to look back as the crane is backing up out of the way. The car that's coming down the street that's like going out of control, sort of thing. Even the little train that winds up going by. They got electricity kind of sparking off the rails or off the wires above the train. There's even a great point of view shot from inside the train as it's going by the monsters. Even a little steam that's coming out of the top of the buildings and things like that. Seeing like Bari walk up to one of the apartments, him like blowing air and like the contents inside of the apartment just flying across the room, sort of thing. I love it all, man. I love it all. There's even a really cool shot of when Bari's standing at the edge of a street and he shoots electricity and the camera angle pulls back and you just see the destruction that's happening down the road. I mean, all those cool techniques and camera angles really add a ton of depth to the action sequences and just the show in general, sort of thing. So kudos to them, man, for just being incredible in regards to their attention to detail. And then when you've got all that on top of the great action and choreography and fights and throwing people into buildings and stuff and explosions, it's just completeness for me, and things that I didn't know that I needed in my life, especially watching so much Super Sentai. Now saying to myself, seeing all the stuff that now I kind of wish that we got in Super Sentai, now thinking to myself, man, I had no idea I was missing out on what it could even be and how much better it could honestly be. So I know I've gushed about this before in the past, but again, I feel like each episode continues to do something new, and a new technique and a new point of view that I didn't know I wanted in my life. So thank you very much, Ultraman Trigger, for introducing me to that. But yeah, guys, overall solid episode, one that I certainly enjoyed. Again, I didn't didn't know how I was going to feel about Bari, but as this episode progressed, I actually found myself really enjoying him and getting the opportunity to see that Hoodrum himself really is kind of fully taking a hold of this idea and mentality of I really should be the leader, right? Like I need to achieve this greatness before Carmera certainly does, as they try to try and still get the Eternity Core and capture Yuna. So he continues to push that envelope. I'm kind of curious if Carmera at some point in time is going to get kind of tired of it. Is she going to take out Hoodrum herself to kind of show her power, or will there be some resemblance, I should say, of teamwork once again between these giants of darkness when it really matters? Or is their own things that they want to achieve for themselves really going to kind of get in the way of it all? So I do love what we're seeing here with Hoodrum. But guys, listen, at the end of the day, these are just simply my A+ opinions. I want to know yours. What did you guys think of episode number 20? Are you looking forward to the season finale? How's the season treating you so far? Let me know your thoughts about this particular episode in the live chat or the comment section box below, guys, after this particular video airs, because the comments certainly do help this particular channel, along with hitting that like button if you're a big fan. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please do yourselves a favor. We just passed 1,000 subscribers. Would love to certainly have you join our family and our community. So hit that subscribe button and that like button and leave a comment. But until next time, guys, do me a big favor. As always, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and keep it A+. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.